consider myself a pretty good and loyal X-Files fan. I've been there from the start, and I've collected the videos, I've got the DVDs, the books, the magazines, the trading cards. I haven't got the creepy models, but maybe eventually. I write fan fiction, I make music videos, I know the episodes inside and out. But I'm not a creepy fangirl. At the end of the day, I enjoy it as a TV show. I know it's not real, and I appreciate that there are bad episodes, but I deal with it. Even Travellers. As a gamer then, I was literally bouncing off the walls when I heard from the 20th Century Fox were releasing an X-Files game starring our favourite characters. It was an FMV, so we would be completely immersed in the world of the show. What we were given, however, was definitely not quite what they had promised. Released in 1998 for both the PC and PlayStation 1, the game is actually revered by many as one of the better FMVs to have ever been released. And in fairness, certainly compared to previous titles of the genre, it has its place. There's no dodgy blue screen effects, all explosions are real and not CGI'd, and the basic plot is fairly reasonable and followable. Basically, Mulder and Scully have disappeared, and Agent Wilmore from the Seattle field office has been sent to find them. Sadly, that would be where the good side of the plot ends, as it proceeds to get convoluted in the dark and often confusing for those who actually watch the show thread about the black oil and aliens. First though, because to get the real feel for this game we have to go way back to the very beginning and that wonderful thing known as the teaser, which incidentally would actually be where we find problem number 1. And when you find what is not only problem number 1 but also problem number 2 in the very first scene of the game, you're in trouble. We start out with Mulder and Scully breaking into some unknown warehouse in the middle of the day. Anybody want to utter a word anytime soon? Mulder? Scully? Anyone? Oh, for crying out loud, somebody say something! But this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. I'm not after full diatribes, because if there's one thing the show was always good at, it was setting mood. And script is the last thing required to do that. But this just gives the impression that Duchovny and Anderson were being paid by the word, and all accountants were unavailable for the shooting of this scene.
Oh really? Uh-huh.
For the most part, every teaser for each episode of the show perfectly set up the story that would unravel over the next hour, with the right mix of atmosphere, music, direction and script. We always knew if it was going to be a comedy or a horror or myth arc episode, etc. Here, It sounds as if somebody's been skewered underwater. We have absolutely no idea of who, what, why or where. And since when did Mulder and Scully's silent communication become so great that they could travel anywhere, make any decisions and solve whatever case without uttering a single word? Unless, of course, the aliens helped them become telepathic via her implant.
Sure, okay.
My point is, it just feels sloppy. I mean, listen, Scully doesn't even bat an eyelid, let alone cry out in pain after being shot. Ice Queen? Pfft, more like woman of solid steel. And to cap it all, we end with this strangeness. Hello? Mulder? I'm bleeding to death down here. Hello? Mulder? Bastard. Without any caution, Mulder just throws himself into the possible line of fire of 3 men, again without saying anything, and it just stands there like a lemon for 10 seconds until the credits kick in. Forgetting for a second that Super Scully is silently and painlessly bleeding on the floor and isn't in any rush for medical attention, why the hell aren't we allowed to see what Mulder's so bemusedly gazing at? As somebody who watched the show, I know exactly what the flashy white light means, and it's kind of explained a long way later in this game, by which time you've completely forgotten that there was a teaser to begin with.
The others.
But why can't we see the irradiated assassins? Mulder doesn't look particularly affected, so did they just vanish or what? Are they stood there naked? Just what the hell? Anyway, so after that frustrating and seemingly pointless piece of story setup, and even more sadly the same old tagline of the truth is out there, because of course the writers couldn't be bothered to come up with something new and different, we're introduced to our new characters and setting with possibly the bizarrest greeting transaction I've ever witnessed on screen.
Why, Agent Wilmore?
Why, Agent Cook?
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me.
I don't know, but there's some sort of underlying unresolved tension between these two. And sure, the characters aren't really developed enough to explore that thoroughly. That, and there's this whole thing about Wilmore's ex-wife, and there's the possibility of flirting with a detective later on who becomes embroiled in the case, because apparently all law enforcement in the XF world are sad and lonely and need to flirt with others in their occupational field if they're ever to get laid. But that's just the vibe I get, and coming from somebody who doesn't like Slash at all, that's saying a lot.
Well, I learned how to suck up from you, remember?
Oh, yeah, right.
Actually, for the sake of decency, I think I'll leave that one alone. Getting back on track though, you'll notice these 3 pictures at the bottom of the screen. They're mood response options, and actually they're pretty cool. The reason for my surprise at that is when I first played, I didn't see the point of them, except to hear our guys say different things.
Yeah, he's probably here to make sure we're not stealing paper clips. I doubt it has anything to do with us. Did he say anything to you?
No.
Did he ask about me?
Calm down, my friend. You're looking a little guilty.
But when I played through again to record clips for this review, I discovered that if you give the indifferent reply on this first encounter, you find a letter on our lead agent's desk from his ex. Whoop-de-doo, I hear you cry. And I know, I never really got the impression that it has any bearing on the rest of the game whatsoever myself, but it is a nice little touch. Sadly though, much like the novelty of having to show your FBI badge every time you want to question somebody, don't get too attached to any quirky devices I point out, because the programmers immediately dump them after only about 2 or 3 times, and all pretty much after the first quarter of the plot. seriously, I don't know if they thought the players would get bored with stuff like that, and don't get me wrong, the alternate speech replies given to replace the mood option lead to much more entertaining banter. But a little variation here and there throughout the whole game would have been nice. As it is, it feels like the programmers were the ones who got bored and lazy instead.
Maybe, maybe not. But at this point, that's really kind of a matter of opinion.
Finally we get to explore our office and the rest of the building, where apparently only 2 agents and their superior work, but I'm not going to go there. And this is pretty much where we learn the controls and get to grips with the mechanics of the game. i.e., this is where we get to start skipping through the plot.
Once you have a second cup of coffee, then come see me.
I promise I won't do that again. There are 4 main cursor selections. Direction, which is obviously a pointing hand. Talk is represented by Mick Jagger's lips. Examine, which I'll discuss more in a few minutes, comes in the form of an eyeball, and the 2 rampantly fornicating worms being held by a hand mean you can use or take something, which gets slightly overused here when you need it to sit at Craig's desk, answer the phone, use the computer, and pick up your gun, badge and handcuffs out of the drawer. To which I ask, why doesn't he carry them with him all the time? And why are they in an unlocked drawer?